Are you considering whether to learn SQL or Python for data analysis? Then this video will help you. We'll be looking at how to inspect and correct data types, which form the foundation of any accurate data analysis. In our previous video, we considered Excel and Power Query for the same task. So let's get to start. So data analysts work with data sets, which are a collection of records with information you can extract, which are also structured in rows of data entries and columns of categories. Every row entry has type, and every column group also has a type. The data type is a foundation for analysis. When data types are correct, analysis works well. When they are wrong, analysis fails. Previously, we saw how to fix data types in Excel and Power Query. Now we will see how to do it in SQL, Python, and work with it in ChatGPT. So we start with SQL. We are working with the airport passengers data set stored in a CSV file. And we'll be exploring inspecting data types of single values in a row and of full column groups, correcting data types when they are wrong. So here we have our data set saved as airport underscore dataset.csv. So we're going to inspect the CSV file first. We open it using Microsoft Excel to see the contents. And here we see we have about 10 columns. The passenger name, passenger number, flight number, origin, destination, age, seat number, checked in, flight date, passport expiry date. And here, because we are going to work with MySQL, we have to set the date formats first to have the year, the month, and the day. So that's a very important thing to set when it comes to MySQL. And so we save it. So we have to convert from CSV to SQL using convertcsv.com. So our first step is to load the file. So step one is select the input. We choose our file and get it into convertcsv.com. And then we see the first set of information we get there about the headers. And then next we choose the input options. We would be dealing with quite some ads in this website. So we set the delimiter to be the comma option. And then next up, we're going to choose our output options. When choosing our output options, for now, we're going to set all fields as varchar. We just want to import the data set kind of in a raw format. So we set all the fields as varchar, which is just like text, variable characters. And also importantly, we're going to set the spaces in the column names to underscore, which we have done. And then for now, we don't want a primary key. We're just dealing with the basics of MySQL. So we don't want a primary key. And then we also set our table name. We're just going to change the table name and set it to passengers. So we do these few settings on our data sets, and then we come to the point where we are going to generate our outputs. So basically we're going to convert the CSV we imported into an SQL form, which will be suitable for MySQL. So we click on CSV to SQL insert, and that updates the codes with our settings, especially for the columns. And then we inspect to be sure that our insert statements are okay. And then we're saving our result as airport underscore dataset.sql. So we click on download results, and we have our file here, which is our SQL file, which we're going to push to MySQL for us to start working with the data types. So we inspect the airport underscore dataset.sql file by opening it in a text editor, in this case Notepad, and this is what we have. We have our create table statement there, and we have the insert data statements, and then we copy it to db-fiddle.com. So db-fiddle is where we're going to be running our codes. We place it in the schema SQL section, and then we run it. So first we have to do an inspection. We've brought in our data set. We have to inspect. And so In the query SQL section, we type select all from passengers. We want to see what our data set looks like. And we click on run, and there you go. We have it there. We just have 3 rows in our data sets, and we've been able to bring in our data sets successfully. And we're going to use comments when we have completed the query before we go to the next one. So our next query is to inspect our columns, and we use the describe passengers query, but we have an issue. It didn't run because the comment we wrote on line 1, we did not leave a space. So we have to leave a space after the comments, and then when we run it, our describe passengers query runs properly. So here we're able to see all the columns, their types, whether they have null values, and then we're also able to see if there's a primary key and then the default value. So that's the inspection of our columns. Here we're able to see that. Apart from describe passengers, we also have an alternative query we can write, and that is show columns. So show columns from passengers would also give us the same result. So we have 2 options in MySQL to inspect our column data types, and here we can see all the types are varchar, variable characters, even though we know that some of those columns there should be integers, but we just set it this way so that we don't have any issues when importing in MySQL, and we can just learn some of the basics. So describe passengers and show columns was used to inspect the data types. Now we are going to use the cast function to change the data types of our age, of the entries in our age column, um, to integers. So we're using unsigned there. That's just to show that we just want positive numbers, which is what our age should be. So we select age and then comma, we cast the age as unsigned. So remember, the age was a varchar. Now we are setting it as a positive integer. So that's what we have there. We've done that for the 3 entries. We have changed the age, their ages from varchar to integers in that query. So next up, we're going to do something similar, this time for entries in our flight underscore date column. So that should be a date. Remember, it's varchar. So we do the same cast. We use the same cast function. We select the flight underscore date, and then we cast the flight underscore date as a date. And we have to put, because it's a select statement, we're selecting it from the passengers table. We have to specify that at the end. And here we go. So this is what we have. Initially, flight underscore date is varchar, and now in this query, we're setting it up as a date, which it is actually. So remember that these statements which involve the cast used within a select statement, a select query, are used for the individual entries in the column, not the column itself, but then the entries. So now we're trying to take the checked underscore in column, which is a boolean, and see if we can cast it from a varchar to a boolean. So we use the same select checked underscore in, we cast checked underscore in as boolean. And what we have to note here is that checked underscore in as boolean is inside the cast function. Okay, we have an issue here. So an error in the SQL syntax. And here we're going to employ ChatGPT. So we're going to AI to see how we can get some help with this issue. So that's also to encourage you to use AI as much as possible when working with these tools, these data analysis tools, to get tips and help. So this is the query I'm writing in ChatGPT. I am running my SQL queries on db-fido.com. I have created a table and trying to cast to Boolean on a column called checked underscore in. So that's a column that's supposed to check, and it's supposed to indicate whether passengers have checked in or not. So I have this error and I paste the error there, and then I'm asking ChatGPT, help me out. So that's the prompt. I'm asking ChatGPT to assist me with a solution. And this is the response. So this is a MySQL specific behavior, not an issue with db-fiddle itself. And it's um, recommending what to do in this scenario. So the first option is to use tinyInt1. So that's what is recommended um, instead of using the Boolean. So remember, I wanted to cast to a Boolean because that column has true or false as the valid entries there. And so it says I should use tinyInt1. So that's an option to use tinyInt1. And then there's a lot of explanation there on how to go about it. And here it's recommending I do checked underscore in as tinyInt1. So ChatGPT has given me some information on how to handle the error I had. And like I said, this should be like a common experience. When you have an error, maybe in Python or SQL, you can always go to AI to get some tips. So I'm back at db-fiddle.com and I change from Boolean to tinyInt with 1 in the bracket there. And then I run it again to see, and well, I still have query execution failed, and it still says I have an error in the syntax. I should check the manual um, for the MySQL server version for the right syntax to use near tinyInt1. So I just go back, let me try it as unsigned, and so I'm just going to use it as unsigned for now. So I'm just going to leave it there. And then the next thing I want to do now is to correct the columns. So in correcting the column data types, I use the alter table SQL query. So alter table, and I put the table name there, passengers, and specifically I am modifying the column age. So after that I alter table passengers, and I have modify column, and then I have the column there age, and then I have the new data type, which is integer, and then it has successfully changed the data type of that column. So that's how to change the data type of a column. So remember, when we used cast, we were trying to modify the data types of the contents of a column, the entries of a column. So when we want to correct the column data type, which is the data type of the entire column, we use alter table. So we use alter table, put the table name there, and then we use modify column, and then we write the column name, and then we write the new data type for that column. So it's important that we understand the SQL syntax. MySQL, which is an implementation of SQL, helps us to run queries on our data set, which we have done. So here we've been able to see how to inspect the data set, inspect the data types, and then correct the data types, both for single entries and for the column. Now we move over to Python, and Python we're working with colab.google.com. So you go to your browser, type colab.google.com, and we start Python. So here we have Python, we start a new notebook, and the first thing we're going to do is load our data sets. And so we're uploading our data set from the folder where it is stored in our computer. Our data set still remains airport underscore dataset.csv. So we load it up there and we have it. Okay, so first of all, we set up the library using import pandas as PD. We're working with the pandas library, which is useful for data analysis. And after that, next we're going to import our data set. And so we have df, which is our data frame, as being pd.read underscore csv, but we need to write the correct name of our file. And so we're typing airport underscore dataset.csv, and then we run df.head, which should help us inspect the first rows of our data set. So we have that. So first we want to see what our data set that we have imported looks like. And this we have done using our data frame and the method within. So next up, we're going to inspect the data types of our columns. So we check using print df.dtypes. That helps us to check inspect all the columns in our data set and see what the types are. So we have df.dtypes, and then if we want to take a specific column, what we have to do is specify that column within the array of our data frame. So we're going to see that later. So let's see what df.dtypes would give us when we print. So we're going to, like we did in SQL, use comments. So we're going to put comments where we don't want to run the code yet so that we can see. And here we see the contents of our columns. Each of them, we see their types here, and that's what dtypes gives us. We print it out. And next up, we're going to look at, we're going to take a particular column. We put the name there. Let's take, we'll take passenger name. So that's the column. We need to put it in the array of our D frame, and then we apply the D type property there, and we can see that taking that is giving us the object as the type in Python. And let's go for the data type of the age column by putting the age there, and we see it's int 64. Now let's see for flight date, the data type for flight date, and it's also object. So that's what we have. So we inspected the data type of a column. Now we want to see the data type of a single value. So we're just going to take the first value there, which has index 0 of our passenger name in the passenger name column, and there we see that it's a string. So here we see how to check the data type of an entry in our column. So let's see for the age column, the first entry there is int64. So we can use this code to iterate through a column and see what the actual data types are. So here we begin to see that when we are dealing with data types in data analysis, we are concerned about the data type of the column and also of the entries as well. And here we see that in Python we have to do indentation. You can see that error. The error message we're getting now around the code, and that shows that indentation was not heeded to. So in Python we have to do indentation, ensure that we maintain the right tabs before our codes. So here we're saying the flight date, and we're trying to check the data type of the first entry there. Okay, so here we have the indentation issue, and then okay, so we see that the codes have to start um, on the same line as long as they're on the same level, and we don't have things like loops. So that is how Python takes indentation seriously. Now we want to inspect the data types of single values. I want to check if the values in a column are numeric. We use pd dots to numeric, and then we supply that method with the data frame, put the column name, and then we have the errors equal to quest, which we need to add as well. And then we also apply not and a, also a method, and then we run it. We're able to get a series, a Boolean series result as to the contents of that particular column, checking if they are numeric or not. So that's the code to use, and you can always use AI to get codes to use for different aspects of programming in Python. You would have seen the Boolean series just appeared, and so the result just showed up here. And now let's move up to correcting data types. It's important when working with data types that we understand how to check and to correct so that our analysis can be as accurate as possible. So here we have the codes, different codes for different type of corrections we can do in Python on our data set. So we have the different codes here, converting the column to numeric, to date time, to Boolean, and then We also want to check if they are mixed types. So sometimes you have a column where you have the entries with mixed types. So we have this code to be able to handle that. And then finally, we're moving on to ChatGPT. And in ChatGPT, we are going to upload our file. So we have airport underscore dataset underscore chatgpt.csv. That's the file. So we upload it in ChatGPT and then we run the query. So remember that ChatGPT is not a data analysis tool, but it can help us in supporting data analysis. So we need to write the prompts. Sorry, not the query, the prompt. We write the prompt here. So I say, in the attached data set, help me inspect the data set, inspect the columns, and tell me the data types. Also inspect the entries. Okay, so and give me a summary. Then recommend any corrections needed. Good. So inspect the data set, inspect the columns, tell me the data types of the columns, and then inspect the entries and give me a summary. Then recommend any corrections needed. So this is a type of prompt you can write in ChatGPT. You upload the CSV file, and this is the result here. It has been inspected, and then below is a structured data inspection covering dataset overview, column level data types, entry quality, summary observations, and recommended corrections. So here we see the AI tool is giving us a lot of information about the columns. So here we see the passenger name is clean, no missing values, is text. The passport number also correct as text, not numeric. And here we see that the age column has missing values. So I introduced that purposely, and also yes, so flight date should be converted to date. Passport expiry date contains missing values. So here we see each of the columns there with their types and then some information about it which ChatGPT has given. And we see some specifics here. We have information about the missing values for the age, telling us passenger name, whose age is missing, and also for passport expiry. And then we see other information here, recommended corrections. We have the date type corrections, which it has indicated as high priority. I have to change the data type of the corrections for dates, and also to convert the age to integer. Okay, this is very important. And then also to handle the missing data for the age and the passport expiry date, and then column naming as well. Now this is optional but recommended. We shouldn't have spaces in the columns. And then we also have validation rules, and then we have the overall assessment. So we see ChatGPT giving us quite some detail on how to go about the analysis. So remember, ChatGPT is not a data analysis tool, but it provides very good support. And this is why AI is very helpful in all we do. So I'm asking another prompt here. I'm saying, can you show me the data set? So I want to see the data set here. I've seen a lot of description about the columns and assessment of the data set. Now I actually want to see the data set, the contents of the CSV file. That was important. Clicking on, that icon at the end of the result there, so I can see the data set and inspect it in ChatGPT. So here we see how we can use ChatGPT, an AI tool, when doing data analysis. So we've been able to see how to inspect and correct data types in SQL, in Python, and how we can use ChatGPT when working with data types during our data analysis. So data types are the foundation for accurate data analysis, and I hope you've learned a lot. I'm sure you have. So I want you to subscribe to Coding Keywords so that you get to see the videos that we upload on data analysis and other areas in tech like Python, Canva, and many other areas. Thank you very much.